Hey there, YouTube land, and today I'm going to make what is probably one of my most ambitious videos to date. Uh, Me and my better half were talking about collecting and horror and stuff like that, and I started to do up a video, basically of collecting like 10 movies from the 80s that I think you should have. And it got us to talking and thinking about stuff, and we decided, what about doing something that takes us throughout the whole gamut, the whole generation. So if you're starting collecting, or if you haven't collected for a while, or you're just kind of updating your collection, stuff like that, here are some decent choices. Some I got, and I'm going to talk about some stuff I don't have as well, because there's a lot of stuff, as as much as it looks like it's back there, there's just a lot of stuff that I really want that I still don't have, and stuff that is just out of print or that I just want to get. So we're going to talk about that stuff. And let's get into it right now and start with the silent era of horror. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of silent horror on Blu-ray, though I do have a set that I can recommend for a starter for silent horror, and it's the American Silent Horror Collection. Now, there is a great uh, run of German expressionistic silent horror as well, stuff like Caligari and oh my God, most of them are no stuff. Nosferatu. And I don't have any of those on Blu-ray. I do have Nosferatu like on DVD, the Kino edition, but I found this to be like a really great start if you're going to start to collect a lot of the old black and white stuff, the old silent stuff. The American Silent Horror Collection by Kino was a really good one. They put out The Man Who Laughs with Conrad Veidt. We got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the John Barrymore version. The Cat and the Canary, which is kind of like a haunted house type of classic kind of thing. We have The Penalty, which is it's a thriller with Lon Chaney, and he does a great job in it. But one of the greatest things is documentary-wise is this one here, Kingdom of Shadows. If you want to know like how to start or where to start in collecting silent horror, and this is where I went to find out a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and to see a lot of movies that there's a lot of great stuff in there. Rod Steiger narrates this, and it has a lot of great different horror stuff in here that I really need to pick up. Stuff like Phantom Carriage and Haxon, two movies. Which one?
The Golem.
Oh, The Golem. Yeah, another classic. Yeah, that I don't have, but are definitely on my list, and a lot of them are on my list because of this fantastic documentary right here. So, Kingdom of Shadows, guys, if you ever get a chance to pick up the set, it's a really good set. If you can even if you can get Kingdom of Shadows on its own for a way to start when you're looking into silent horror, because it can be a little bit overwhelming. There's not a lot of it out there, but it runs the gamut and it goes all over the place, and some of it actually doesn't even look like horror until you actually get into finding out, okay, this is where it was, and this is how this came about. It's this it's the baby steps, it's the start, and some of the stuff is visually stunning. It's especially the expressionist stuff. It was amazing. Lon Chaney was an incredible actor. He just did such great stuff. It's so underrated. Uh, it's not on this set, but I do have a Lon Chaney set that has a reconstruction of London After Midnight. And I would recommend everybody that hasn't seen that to actually check out the reconstruction of London After Midnight. I thought it was a classic film, just beautifully shot and done. It's such a shame that it's a lost film, but you get to see the reconstruction through stills and all that stuff. And I thought that was going to be kind of boring and kind of plotting, but it wasn't at all. Actually, it was really into it right up to the last very frame of the show on there. Classic one to pick up. I
It's
think so.
okay not to have them in Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's true. You don't need to have every one of these in Blu-ray. I mean, I know a lot of us here, we love our Blu-rays, and me included. But a lot of the stuff here isn't going to get much or any better in Blu-ray. That being said, there are a lot of stuff that has some great remasters done. But honestly, I don't need to upgrade The Penalty or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or The Man Who Laughs on the Blu-ray. It's almost, it doesn't make much sense to me. It's this is good. This is as good as it gets for me. Next up, we're talking about the more psychological thrillers that came out around the time, and M with Fritz Lang. It's a chilling story of a child killer played by Peter Lorre. This would be the role that would make him famous, and in some ways it would be the role he would have to live down for the rest of his career. He'd be playing these creepy characters pretty much all on through, and Peter Lorre was a great actor. Just the bug-eyed, kind of like just a creepy look to him. An amazing one. This one was put up by Criterion. It's got some great features on here as well. And this one runs at 110 minutes, so it's not a short film. So buckle in, get ready. But it's a beautiful film, and it's one you should really check out. Moving on from the classic silent horror era, we're going to go into the Universal stuff. Now, Universal came around in the 30s and 40s, and there were a lot of the monster movies that you see today, like the stuff you watch now, like the Dracula Untolds and the I Frankensteins and stuff like that, all got started by much, much better films. And if you haven't checked it out yet, this is the box set that came from England, the Monsters Universal Monsters set. If you see it in your store, though, usually around and you're here in North America, you're going to see it looking a bit more like this one right here. And it's a great set. There's like cards and there's a book in here, and there's some classic movies. It has we got Dracula. We have the Spanish version of Dracula here. I really recommend watching the Spanish version of Dracula. A lot of people will go on and watch the Bela Lugosi one, and they'll kind of skip over the Spanish one because, well, one, it's the Spanish one, it's dubbed and all that stuff. It's well subtitled, right? But it's really good. The thing was that the Spanish crew shot their scenes after the I guess the American crew were finished shooting. So while they're watching them, they're kind of like waiting and watch so they could do their scenes. And by doing so, they were able to like see some of the mistakes and errors that was made during the Bela Lugosi one, and fix them and like add more atmosphere. And that really shows well in the Spanish one. It's too bad the Spanish Dracula wasn't a better actor, but for atmosphere-wise, the Spanish Dracula one does actually better Dracula. Frankenstein is, of course, a classic, but Bride of Frankenstein is probably, is it maybe the first horror sequel that I can actually think of. If you can correct me if I'm wrong there, because I very well could be. But and not only that, but it was a sequel that was better than its original. As good as Frankenstein is, Bride of Frankenstein is so much better. It's more interesting. It's just got more depth to it. It has a natural progression, which sequels would try to do and end up like losing along the way. The Wolfman is here, of course, the classic one. The Mummy. I'm not a big fan of the original Mummy. I actually like the Hammer editions of the Mummy that came out later. And actually, every sequel of the Mummy is more interesting than the original Mummy itself, in my opinion. I think that the Boris Karloff original Mummy is a kind of a snooze, and maybe it's just the era that I grew up in. But I would much rather watch The Mummy's Hand any day with Tom Tyler. Phantom of the Opera. The edition they have here is not the the classic one. This is the Claude Rains Phantom. It's a lot of opera in it, like it is an opera, after all, and it's not my favorite of the Universal ones. Actually, it's probably my least favorite on this set here. I'd rather watch The Mummy first, but it's not a bad film. The Invisible Man is another. It's a classic. It started out as horror and went in because of its like sci-fi concepts. Something like an Invisible Man could easily get switched around, as you would see later on in the Invisible Man series. You would see them go into more like adventure and science fiction and fantasy aspects, because at the heart of the story you've got a guy that turns invisible, so you can go a lot of places with this. It doesn't have to be always okay. Here's the invisibility syndrome, he's going to go insane like in the original. It can be okay, World War II came about and all of a sudden the Invisible Man works differently now. We have like Nazis and Nazism as like the kind of like the prevalent like evil in the world. So an Invisible Man all of a sudden isn't seen as a horrific character as much as he can be seen now as an agent of good. So we got things like the Invisible Agent, where we get to see like different aspects of this character. So from a character that's gone in the 30s to be kind of crazy, from kind of a mad scientist era, to when we see the horrors of real life war, we get to see this character that was once a bad guy being taken and turned into a good force for good. Creature from the Black Lagoon is kind of like one that came out in like the 50s. It's kind of like the monster era. Basically, we get the people start to like see that we got a lot of the bigger monsters, stuff like Godzilla, which I have over there, by the way. I should have brought that one over. Great classic monster film, by the way, and a really good one. A very much more serious film than you would actually think after seeing a lot of the Godzilla sequels. But Creature from the Black Lagoon was just an amazing one, and to this very day, the creature suit is just one of the utmost best suits effects that you're ever going to see. the Creature movie was going to be remade many times from with James Cameron, with a bunch of other people. Even Del Toro was assigned to the Creature from the Black Lagoon remake. And I think one of the reasons that people kind of go away from it is because it is such a strong story, and it works so well. But more than that, the Creature from the Black Lagoon is such a strong visual, striking image that will be hard to update and sell people. One, people take it seriously, and two, you how do you beat the original Creature look? You would have to be one really cocky person to try and pull that off. I know in the 1980s they did a movie called Monster Squad, which can basically Goonies for horror, where they have kind of like a creatures type character. It's pretty cheesy, and automatically you know right away, yeah, you really can't beat the Creature. Since we've reached all the way up to the 60s and stuff, we're looking into, well, Black Sunday. It's a Mara Bava classic. It's kind of when we're getting to the more like the supernatural horror. We're getting to like to witchcraft. It's the start of kind of like the demonology and stuff like that, but still has a fantastical aspect to it. And Black Sunday is a really great addition to that. This is the Arrow edition. This one has actually the original 1956 movie I, Vampire on it, which was a Riccardo Fredi directed film with help of Mara Bava actually. And it was the first Italian like spoken horror film. So a great addition to add to your collection, by the way, guys. So if you are looking to Arrows, this is one of the big ones to pick up. Also around that time, we got a lot of the Roger Corman stuff like that coming around in the 50s and 60s, and went on to the 70s. And he did the AIP stuff with Vincent Price. He did a lot of these here, like really classic films. This one here is from Scream Factory. It's got The Pit and the Pendulum, Fall of the House of Usher, it's a classic there, Mask of the Red Death, The Haunted Palace. As you know, this goes from 60s to 70s. We got Witchfinder General, and of course, The Abominable Dr. Fives. Again, Vincent Price was made for this type of role. He was kind of like an early romantic lead, and then ended up playing a lot of villains. And Roger Corman came along, and we got into more of this kind of like gothic horror that was coming around at the time. Around this time, you had the vampire stuff with Hammer and all that. But this was one of the classics that came out. So the Vincent Price collection, I definitely recommend that one. Now, since we're talking Hammer, let's talk about one of Hammer's later films that actually I think worked really well. This one's put up by Synapse, and it has a really, really great documentary on it that you should check out. Twins of Evil. When Hammer started, they did a lot of gothic horror. They redid The Mummy. Did a lot of the Universal stuff, but they didn't have the rights to the look of the character, so they had to change a lot of the looks. Dracula cannot look like the Dracula from the Bela Lugosi days. Frankenstein monster could definitely not look like the Universal monster, because that was, there was a patent pending on that whole thing, and patent pending, not exactly the word I want to use. They had the rights, so we had a very different look. She had many different looks over the Frankenstein and stuff like that, and Dracula would update many different times. Now, around this time, Count Yorga would come out, and Count Yorga was a modern day take on the vampire films. It was extremely successful, and I don't have it in my collection. I actually wish I did. There's Count Yorga and Return to Count Yorga. They're both starred Robert Quarry. Actually, there's a third kind of unofficial film called Deathmaster. My dad has that one. I don't. Yeah, I need to get that one. Yes, I do. I need to get them all. But so around that time, Hammer started to like really get up there and kind of like move their gothic stuff into more like tawdry territory, if you want to say. They're instead of having the low cut shirt, sometimes that low cut shirt will come open. You would see more modern day aspects to it. You would even see Dracula himself cross over into a more of a modernistic way. But Twins of Evil was really kind of like a start to that. Peter Cushing plays a shockingly different character in Twins of Evil. He's really more of an evil character. I wouldn't say evil so much as a Puritan. Just a great film, fantastic cast, and there's a great The Flesh and Fury exposing Twins of Evil documentary, which you really got to check out. It's 84 minutes long, and it talks about the whole like Karen Steen's, and all the stuff right back from the Carmilla stuff back in the days when we're talking about the books and the fiction. You just got to check it out. Now, around this time, horror began to change. It began to get a lot more of a psychological aspect, and that's when stuff like Eyes Without a Face would come along, and it would be like I don't really want to call this. It's not a slasher, but it's kind of like it's getting into that territory of more uh, of the more psychological aspect. We're getting, as you can see, we're starting to get out of the gothics and the hammers and the amicus and stuff like that. We're starting to get more of a, it's really more of a slightly reality based, kind of more thriller-esque, more like getting more into like the mental aspects of like what, instead of like just being a monster, what's the monster thinking? And we're getting into that with stuff like Eyes to the Face.
It's still a slasher, I'd say.
Would you call it slasher?
Early slasher.
But it would be more. It would be. This would be like a. What would you call this? The type of slasher. This would be a thinking man's slasher. This is not a Friday the 13th, for instance.
No.
Now, around this time, well, in the early 70s, they started to change, especially in the UK. They really lashed out against all these gothic horrors that came up before it and wanted to do something different, something unique. You wanted to make more real based, more gritty, more like there was a change in cinema. There was a change in filmmaking, and there's a changing of the guard coming about. And Mark of the Devil is one that really shows that. There's actually a great documentary on here about that whole changing of the guard, about like where people are moving away from the fantasy aspect and they're getting into stuff like kind of more realistic and sometimes harder to watch. Kind of says some brutal sequences like in Mark the Devil, which actually would probably seem tame right now compared to a lot of the films that are out afterwards, well, the hostels and stuff like that. But it's definitely a one that is worth owning. It's a great one in that era. We would move next into like we'd go kind of back, swing back into more of a supernatural. But in this time we would look more closer to home. We would look more towards religion as well. Religion would become more of an issue than it had been. I mean, we'd kind of kept it. You know, it had been there, but it hadn't been as strong as it was in this period. And when you got stuff like Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, for instance, which Criterion put a beautiful edition of this one, and just an incredible film. Like we're talking about, you know, all of a sudden we're talking about possession. We're talking about the changing. In a lot of ways, it's talking about the changing of the guard in society. Like Rosemary is kind of the last of her kind at this point. Mia Farrow plays this very like the Rosemary character, and she's
It's the loss of innocence.
yeah, but it's the loss of a different. It's a different when you think about it in a way. It's a different time as well. Around this time, feminism and stuff was really making a forefront. Rosemary is very much not the feminist, and she pays for that. Her husband, played by John Cassavetes, is very much the dominant character. She is within her space. She loses her identity, becomes lost with this child that's growing inside of her. That's the demon spawn, and at first she kind of like she's there's a whole cycle like a paranoia of losing yourself, of losing your identity, of losing to this thing inside of you. It's a very early like, and I haven't really thought of it like that until like actually just talking about it, but it really is. It's really, she's losing herself to, she's losing her independence. All of a sudden she has to depend on all these other people, and she doesn't really trust anybody, and she has good reason not to trust anybody in this film. Spoiler alert here, guys, but if you haven't seen Rosemary's Baby at this point, I'm sorry, go out and watch it. It's a good movie whether you know what's going to happen or not. And Cassavetes plays quite a bastard in this film. But Rosemary's Baby would open up the door to get into real, like, serious, like, religious iconography in these films. And that would come up with The Exorcist, which is a great example. The Exorcist was a movie that was released on Christmas. And you got to think about that for a second. They released this, like, possession movie of this little girl, this 12, 13-year-old little girl named Reagan, played by Linda Blair, and doing horrifying things. That was a really risky move to put this out around Christmas time, but you had to think that at this time, what were people thinking? What was the, politics-wise and everything? It was the right time for this film, and it really showed it. This film was extremely successful. It's a fantastic film, but a film like this could have easily gotten banned or lost or just shoved under and any other time. That just goes to show you that movies come out at the right time. Although I don't have it here, there is some decent Blu-rays and DVD editions of A Night of the Living Dead. which came out in 1968. Now, you have to remember that when Night of the Living Dead came out, it was a cool, different take on the zombie films. But what made it even more like relevant and big at the time was that at the end of Night of the Living Dead, the one person that lives to the end of the film is the black character who is mistaken for a zombie and pretty much shot in the head. He's killed. He's assassinated, and this happened around the time of the Martin Luther King assassination. So, although this definitely wasn't planned, it was a sad accident. It actually gave another level and more relevance to the film that it probably wouldn't have had if that hadn't happened. These movies, as much fun as they are kind of like a time capsule for the era that they're done in. It's like this one here. This one is done by De Palma, but could easily be a Cronenbergian type film. And the fact that it's kind of like the strange, almost like the body horror-ish type thing with the sisters. We have Margot Kidder, William Finney is in this one. Finney, did I say Finney? Did I get that right? Finley, right? Yes, William Finley. Oh my God. Yes, I've been talking for a while. And it's just such a cool, different film. When you knew that like the thrillers were going this way at this point, just really great stuff. I can't not mention the Giallos, and since my son has my best Blu-ray Giallo, I decided to start with one of the first Giallos that, not the first Giallos, but the first Giallo done by Argento, and that is Birth, Crystal Plumage, which I think is a beautiful cover, guys. What do you think? Just a classic film. The Giallo genre was kind of different. The slasher genre that would come later would really borrow a lot from Giallos. And movies like, even films like that were defining the genre long before the genre was popular. Films like, but I'm going to get into in a minute, like Black Christmas. It was, Giallo was just a different, unique genre. It's slasher. A lot of people don't want to say it, but it's a mystery slasher. That's what a Giallo is.
It's a European slasher.
Yeah, it's a European slasher. It's got the European sensibility to it, and a lot of people will go like, I don't want like slasher films, but I watch Giallos. You're still watching a slasher film. Just watching a slasher film with a unique take. Maybe it's more artistic, maybe like the music a little bit more, but still at the end of the day, they're slashing people. There's a killer. There's there's women being feral, and there's a lot of red herrings. But I gotta say, for Giallo movies, unlike a lot of the early slasher films where it was the final girl, there were a lot of final men in the original like slasher films. Look at movies like Deep Red, for instance, Ponderosa. That David Hemming. There is a final man in this one here. Tenebrae. In a way, there is a final man. That one, just such classic films. And Birth, Crystal Plumage. Again, it is another one with the final man. Now, moving on to Black Christmas. Black Christmas was done in 1974 by Bob Clark, who was a director that could pretty much do almost any genre and do it successfully. He did Murder by Decree, which was a really great take on Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper. He did, of course, the other Christmas film, A Christmas Story, which is a classic. He made the Porky's films, which took and brought up the teen and like the exploitation level at the time, and brought him to like a more relevant and more interesting take on them. So Black Christmas comes along and it gives us the best of the stuff we had before, Giallos and stuff like that, but it adds the slasher thing. It adds like this POV aspect to it. We got the killer's point of view. It's a very nihilistic. It's a very dark. It's very, very, very depressing in the ending. It's not a happy movie. It does not end happy, and it's the twist to start. We get really the big twist starting there. Just so much starts with Black Christmas, and some people didn't really get Black Christmas at the time, but it's good to see that now Black Christmas is getting a lot more love and a lot more. Now, not the remake. No, we're not getting that. But the original Black Christmas is a classic film that you definitely have to see. It's a Canadian horror film, and it's steeped in Canadiana, but it's something that's extremely relevant across the globe. It's just a all-out scary movie. Now, the only thing to go from that was probably the Friday the 13th. Now, I think 3D was kind of like at the height when you got like Friday 13th going. We got like three big things in part 3. We got Disco, Music, yeah, they've updated the Friday 13th music to be kind of a disco music beat. We've got the slashers, which were extremely popular at the time, and we've got 3D. So you got everything in there, and actually probably one of the best stories and the best character allotments of the whole saga. Except it's lost behind all the trendy, like gimmicky stuff, like the 3D. There, I mean, it has actually has likable characters, and it really is uh, something that's taken for granted now. Most slasher films did not have likable characters. Then they still don't. They have characters that there's one character that you like, and everybody else you're just waiting for them to get picked off, and to see which inventive way the killer is going to pick them off. And Friday 13th was kind of one of the starters in doing stuff like this. But in part three, we actually had likable characters. We had like characters of different ages. We had like a pregnant girl in here. We had the older hippie type characters. We had characters that seemed kind of meaner, like the biker characters, but still had they had kind of their shining moments as well. That would go on even farther with Friday 13th Part 4, the final chapter. The final chapter was meant to be the end of the series, or at least the end of the Jason saga. They had planned to go other places with it. Unfortunately, they kind of crapped out on that one and didn't work it. But Friday 13th Part 4 is a sense of a great casting, and again, we are introduced to characters that you do not want to see killed. We do not want to see the Crispin Glover character die. We do not want to see Ted die. Teddy, give Teddy a kiss. Because these characters have such great camaraderie, they're such great friends and such great friendship that you are almost thrown because it's not what you expect to see in a movie like this. You expect to see the disposable characters, and guess what? These characters aren't disposable. So it throws your expectations for a loop and gives you something completely different. Slashers can only last so long and have so many things before we would have to go in another direction. And the next two films would start in that direction. And that would be the more comedy, more satirical based horror. First off was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Now, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Arrow Edition, by the way, guys, pick this up while it's still around and still available to buy. This is the limited edition. When he made Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Tobe Hooper had made a brutal, brutal film. And Tobe Hooper had a very dark sense of humor. So he thought that he did actually have some humor in Texas Chainsaw Massacre that he thought kind of flew over the heads of some people, and they just caught the brutality and the intensity of it, which was great. It was a fantastic film. But he wanted to, when he made it, he didn't want to remake that again. He didn't want to do the same thing. So when he did Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, he went into a completely different direction. He did the horror, the kind of like the fun, cheesy horror that you just love to watch. And a lot of people, this got a lot of backlash back in the day, but it was just a great little horror film that a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. Chop Top is great. Bill Moseley, incredible in the film, and we get to see the character of Leatherface, which is pretty infantile and like bullied in the first one, to become almost like this is Leatherface's almost teenage years. If you want to say, I hate to say that really, but it's like Leatherface wants a girlfriend now. He's there's a progression to the character. It's a progression to the whole thing. Even though we've gone in a completely different direction with the type of film that's done, and sequel, Leatherface is his adolescence, and with adolescent films you get comedy, and comedy works here. Next up is Motel Hell, which was a straight in a comedy horror one with Rory Calhoun, and just pick this up. It's a really fun film. It's much along the lines of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, except that it didn't get the hatred that Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 did at the time, because it didn't have a franchise already existing that was, kind of like that people had certain expectations of. Don't worry, we're getting there. When we get into the 90s, we kind of see like almost like a regression to what there's a backlash against like the slashers and stuff like that we're seeing in the early 90s. We're getting to see like a lot of the early slasher stuff that's still coming out, like the sequels, and they're really not great sequels overall. I think Jason Takes Manhattan's, Freddy's Dead are horrible movies. New Nightmare, Wes Craven, great film, but ahead of its time, so it would not get the love at the time that it deserved. It would get later on. But we get to see stuff like this, which is a throwback to the Hammer era with movies like Sleepy Hollow. Now, still, this got a lot of flack for like CGI and a lot of different stuff that was done there. But a lot of people did not really get what Tim Burton was going for at the time because a lot of people were far removed from the whole Hammer aspect of horror, and this is pretty much a Hammer horror film updated to a crowd that, unfortunately, were not familiar with the source material that it was taken from. And there was a serious backlash to stuff like that, which brought us films like Seven. When you got like more of the psychological serial killer one, with the Seven Sounds of the Lamb, stuff like that, that would come out and give a different, more adult take. We'd get more. You notice that this would get more bloody around this time. It was kind of getting away from like, because around this period we get a lot of these like PG era horror films, and let's just say they didn't work as well. Like I said before, New Nightmare. That's why I put this one out. Fantastic. Great set, by the way. That being said, I think New Nightmare on Elm Street collection needs an upgrade. Horror had gone in so many different directions, and there was been such a drought of like what people consider serious horror at the time that it really wasn't thought of as that respectable anymore. So along came the Scream franchise to like they did the slasher stuff and they did all the stuff that had been done before, but they wanted you to know that they knew they were doing it. They winked at the audience. It was very self-referential. It talked about slashers, talked about horror movies within the horror movies. This had been done like earlier on before and a much ahead of its time thing, but the Scream series was a game changer at the time. Unfortunately, it brought in a whole bunch of like teen horror films like I Know We Did Last Summer and urban legends. I do like urban legends though, and stuff like that that would go on to have horrific sequels and like really glut the market, and we'd get stuff like the J horror with The Ring and Grudge and all these type of films that were just basically bringing us back to the kind of like a PG era of horror again, where a lot of people would really go against. There'd be a serious backlash. Then we'd finally get into stuff like this. Foreign horror became big, and so many great ones. Oh God, so many I want. Like, I still can't believe I don't have it. Switchblade Romance, otherwise known as we saw it, honey. What was it?
What?
What's the first horror movie we watched together?
Good Lord.
She's thinking about that.
What is it called?
High Tension.
High Tension, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we started to get like a French New Wave horror movies like Martyrs and stuff that were coming about. Things that were giving a more serious, more brutal. And Inside, I really recommend this. I really got to find that one. I haven't been able to find that around here anywhere. And I think it's only on DVD. I don't think there's Blu-ray. Actually, I think I mentioned that in my video last night. I would love there to be Blu-ray of that one. But this is one of the ones, vampire ones, that kind of did a thing. And it started another trend as well. This one started the trend of like remaking modern day films. Let the Right One In was remade by, was it Let Me In? Something like that. With Chloe Grace Moretz, isn't it? Well, this is superior. The other one is a great film too, but watch them both back to back. This is a very superior film. And we came around. We came full circle again from the 1980s with an update. All of a sudden, we're into the Chuckies and stuff like that again. The slash films, The Curse of Chucky, and you know what? Finally, after having so long a period of them doing it wrong, getting stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street, they're the new Nightmare on Elm Street movie that came out. This did it right. It just brought it back to its roots and gave almost like a pseudo gothic type of feel to it with some great camera work. If you haven't seen Curse of Chucky, I strongly recommend it. It's a really good movie. And remakes would get even like more intense. And this was a good one to see in theater, guys. Was Evil Dead. I really did enjoy this film. I didn't think I was going to. I'm a huge fan of Evil Dead. So when they even like mentioned that remaking Evil Dead, there's going to be no Ash in it, I was like completely peeved. But this is a brutally fantastic film, and it's not a remake. It hasn't been out and out said, but if you've watched Evil Dead, it's a sequel. They hint at the fact that the kids that are coming up there, it just might be Ashes, and when you take it in that way, and because it's not, so, they're gone to the cabin. Their parents just go up to this cabin a long time ago, and but they haven't gone up there in a long, long time. And he's gone up there with his sister to get her off drugs, and she's not ready. So you actually have a reason for going up there. But there's some strong hints throughout the film that that this may be Ash's kids, and we even get to see a little cameo. Spoiler again. Look, I'm going to spoil all these for you. An Ash cameo in a movie. Next, that was one I really am not a fan of, but I think it deserves to be on this list. As we're going through here, guys, these are movies. Every one of these here are recommendations that I think that should be in your collection. Ones that you can start with, ways to go, depending on the type of horror you like. So hopefully throughout this video here, you've seen a lot of decent stuff that that you can say, okay, that's the type of horror that I'm interested in. So let's go. I think I'll pick up that. I want the Universal set. I want the Monster set. I'm interested. I like slasher films, or I'm kind of interested in seeing where that goes. I want to see like kind of the more gritty, realistic horror that UK was bringing out, Mark the Devil, stuff like that. So this is where we're going with this video, just in case, if I didn't make that clear enough there, I'm making it now. You're Next. This is literally like, I don't know. I did not like this film. And that being said, You're Next and Purge, and The Purge, and I think there was another one that I watched.
Conjuring.
I like Conjuring. I think Conjuring was more of a ghost story type thing, and I did like Conjuring. That was a good movie. But Your Next to me wasn't a great movie. I mean, there was better home invasion movies. I thought that The Strangers was a much better film, and that's another one that can go on anyone's. I don't have the film here. I don't own it, but it should be in anyone's collection, mine included. But Your Next does have something about it. The characters are idiotic at points, and I don't mean like the just make wrong decisions. I mean they're morons. They're not likable. They're not very likable characters. They're a hateful, dysfunctional family, and in this dysfunctional way, I'm guessing, in a kind of way, it's like the Rob Zombie era of horror. Like Rob Zombie started to make horror movies with House of Corpses, Devil's Rejects. He did the 2 Halloween films, and his best work to date, in my opinion, though a lot of people hate this movie, is called Lords of Salem. It's a really strange film, and it's not for everybody. I'm not going to lie to you right there, but it does evoke more actual signs of that he actually does have talent than the other films do. People tend to see Rob Zombie's work and think he's gritty and he's realistic and stuff like that. But Rob Zombie is probably one of the most stylized directors out there. His gritty isn't like real gritty. It's Hollywood, he hooks on to certain things that people tend to buy into, and and that's the era that he's in. He has great music because he's a musician. That being said, he doesn't always do the best in scoring his films. Halloween 2 is a horribly scored film. I really thought that was badly done. I like to say that it was good, but it wasn't. It wasn't well done. It didn't utilize the songs well. Nights in White Satin was a horrible choice, laughably horrible. But that being said, Your Next does do music right in this one, and I think it's Dwight Tilley Band did the, and it was upgraded by who remade that song again? Was it MTP or something like that? But that's a great song. You will be singing the song for days after. I danced around to my living room to this song. I really did. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll watch that movie just to hear that song. That's why I have YouTube. So where does horror go after that? Well, surprisingly, not a lot on your big screen. Horror became more personal. Movies in the theater became much more along the lines of watching stuff like the Avengers, the latest Spider-Man Rick, something like that. But horror came home. Horror became just like it did back in the early days when you were watching your horror hosts on a Saturday or Sunday night. horror became more personal and became more into your house again. So Walking Dead came around. You got zombie, the zombie genre is like there in your home every day, and as well as many others. Shows like Bates Motel that became extremely successful and were huge surprise hits. Nobody expected this. Nobody expected this movie to be this movie to make a spawn a TV series that was this damn good, but it did, and it went in a different direction than I thought it would. Unfortunately, the second season of Bates Motel goes in exactly the direction that I feared it would in the beginning, and we'll see how it goes in season 3. The following is brings the serial killer thing home. This is just such a cool one. I'm worried with third season though. We're going to see like more. I don't want it to become like a procedural. It really doesn't work. It has to be a continuous storyline, or the following will fall apart. Hannibal came to the small screen, and we got to see finally. Thank you, Hannibal Lecter, done and utilized probably the best that he's done. You know, like Anthony Hopkins or not, he does a good job of the character, but he can be over the top. And that's just Anthony Hopkins. I love Anthony Hopkins. I think he's a fantastic, stellar actor. But I saw Manhunter first, and I liked Brian Cox's kind of more subdued portrayal of it. And this has kind of a combination of both. Mads Mikkelsen just does an amazing job. And he steals the show in this one here. It's just a fantastic one. And all that being said, we started with the silent stuff, but with the real horror, where did we start? We started with the monsters, the Universal monsters, and they're trying to do them now with the Dracula Untolds and all, and the I Frankensteins and stuff like that, and they're not working very well. It's not going good. It's not going good at all. But you know what? There is still one place where you can get your Universal, original, classic monsters the way they should be done, with great actors and great quality acting and great production. And that's right in your own house with a series that doesn't get enough talk. Penny Dreadful. Penny Dreadful takes all those classic characters that you love, the vampires, the werewolves. You got your Victor Frankensteins, your Frankenstein monsters. You got your Dorian Grays, and puts them all into one neat little package in one fantastic, amazing show. So if you haven't checked out Penny Dreadful, there is one place where you can actually watch the originals, come back and watch that, and kind of see the correlation. Sorry, this video's been kind of long, but you know, I get talky on some of these, but I think it was a good way to like look down kind of a chronological aspect of like horror and horror collecting. Everything that I've shown here as I've been talking have been like choices and picks for me to you of movies that will work really well in rounding out your horror collection and giving you like a broader like aspect of like horror films and like what can be done there. I really didn't get a lot into the slasher genre stuff like I'm going to, and the reason I did that is because I have a couple more list videos coming up after this one. Luckily this one's about 44 minutes long, so Aaron is going to be like resting his voice, having a cup of tea because his voice is almost gone right now, talking to the giant lobster head in the sky, and going over to my better half and hoping she feeds me or something like that, because it's one of those days. Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making this video for you guys. Let me know in the comment section down below if you liked it. You know, give me a thumbs up. I do have that back on there now for a thumbs up and thumbs down if you like that. And let me know some of your choices. I just went like kind of like grazed over. Like there's certain ones that I'd love to talk about more. The Blob. I don't own The Blob. Criterion put out a really great version of that. And the remake of The Blob was put by Twilight Time, another fantastic company that's been putting out some horror recently. I missed out on that Chuck Russell edition. There's so many good things out there, and I had to gloss over some stuff I don't have, but I tried to give like just a basic rundown of like different aspects of horror, and hopefully that'll help in either when you're deciding to how you want to cater your horror collection and what exactly you want to do with it. For me right now, what I want to do with mine is not have to put them all back, but I got to do that, and I got to upload this video because we have more list videos coming up today. It's one of my most ambitious days yet, so hope you guys are going to be along for the ride. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a great day. For me right now, my voice is almost gone, and it's time for tea.